So hey, today we're going to try to lean into the essence of focusing on longevity concepts, focusing on the idea of aging as like the primary focus in terms of what is holding people back from trying to be able to live longer. And this is something that is a unique focus today. It's absolutely a unique focus because we're trying to sort of turn this into a campaign mindset, into a campaigning mindset, something like a new tagline, almost like a new tag phrase, almost like a new trail on email trail to be able to add this to my email trail to, for example, to be able to try to add this more consecutively into the framework of future focused campaigns in life. And that corresponds to the aging element of reverse aging, the reverse aging market, I guess you could call it, because in essence right now, as it is, there's very little that's actually on the actual market for the public markets to be able to consume necessarily, which is interesting because there have been companies out there that are trying to pursue the essence of reverse aging, So we're trying to like get this aligned in today's podcast in terms of trying to create it in a larger, longer, like foundational campaign that corresponds to Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios in the future. Like trying to reach out to families, trying to reach out on old Facebook groups and old accounts to be able to try to reach out to old people, to not specifically elderly people, but people that I haven't spoken to in a long time is what I meant by old people that are sort of in the past for me specifically. But when you transpose that a little bit further, their purpose is to try to speak to people that are a little bit older and have a little bit more age, if you will, because the essence of reverse aging is to try to reach people to start talking about the idea and the item and the concept that relates to reverse aging, to try to push it out into the marketplace, that the concept of conceptualizing reverse aging is something that is conceptualized beyond just the notion of just some concept in a sci-fi movie. For example, from what I've understood in terms of, it's called the Nakamata gene, or something like that, which corresponds to, there's two main people we're going to reference, which I've talked about in the past in the podcast a little bit. The Nakamata gene, and those two people refer to like the media right now in terms of referencing, being able to talk about more so the access to the three genes that help to bring down aging, reverse aging, so that in the future it is something to combat, all ailments that have to do with health issues, for example, because in essence the idea of reverse aging combats the one foundation which corresponds to issues that correspond to health in essence, which is like founded and I guess you could say related to the foundation of aging as the root cause, for lack of better words. So the Nakamata gene, he won the Nobel Peace Prize in either 2006 or 2010 or 2014, one of those dates. But anyway, the Nakamata gene is what makes this research apparently viable and valuable to be able to create stem cell rejuvenation, in essence, from having 4 different genes. But that goes all the way back to stem cells. So these two people, David Sinclair, who's one of the primary people who has a company and he's very vocal, and he's speaking at government forums about, and he works at Harvard. David Sinclair, he works at Harvard in terms of talking about reverse aging and using the mechanics to reverse aging, using 3 of the 4 genes in essence, because the Nakamata genes used 4 genes, and that made it go back to almost 100% rejuvenation in terms of like going back to a stem cell, which means it's almost like going back to, the essence of being born, which is too far in terms of reversing the process. So in terms of reverse aging, they made it so it was like 75% in terms of reverse aging as opposed to 100%, where it's like going all the way back to being born, for example. So the idea is that they are using the 3 genes called OCT2, OCT4, SOX2, and KLF7. I don't know what that number is. It might be 4 also. I don't know, but you got to look up David Sinclair. And the second person is, and you can look him up on the World Government Forum most recent talk on YouTube. And in addition, there's David Friedman, David Fried, Friedberg, David Friedberg, Friedberg, and he was most recently on the Chris Willis podcast talking about reverse aging as well. So nonetheless, these two people are making references to the availability of this concept being more available in the FDA approval scenarios for the first time. And although there's something like Altos Labs already has been injected with like $10 billion, but they're not well known and well on the radar. So this is like the first time that they're trying to come out into sort of the public to also correspond with us, Dinky Tech Change for Games, to try to start to push and campaign so as many people out there as possible start to know about this potential for conceptual reverse aging, in quotes, because it's meant to like hit the market where they've already sort of tried to show that this works within animals, and they're changing it into humans in trying to extend the life of humanity in essence. And it's worth looking up those two names and those specific talks that are on the internet. And so David Sinclair and David Friedberg and reverse aging, just put that into the search in terms of the internet and it should come up for you. But in addition, you have Brian Johnston, and in addition, which talks about putting younger blood into older people to help slow down and reverse aging as well, slow down the biological aging process. That's just one element. And then you also have Neuralink and Neuropod. Neuropod is a good connection to Neuralink, which is Elon Musk's company, for being able to try to connect the mentality, because what David Sinclair has also been saying, as well as David Friedman, is that the human body in essence is like a computer, more that it's like, so the fact that it's like a computer connected with the concept that Neuralink connects a physical product with our digital body and our digital DNA and our digital readouts of, not digital DNA, but our digital signals, is a correspondence to how we are sort of like computers to begin with. And having that interface as Neuralink, as a physical interface, has the potential to conceptually connect us with additional, machines that add more powers to us. So these are like related in terms of the reverse aging process, in terms of the aging process, to kick it further down the line and stay around. And it's worth mentioning it starting now. That's what this podcast is about, is fundamentally, first and foremost, starting to mention it to older people, starting to mention what I'm mentioning right now to older people, to elderly people, to try to focusing on these things, just to try to keep a mindset and a focus for knowing about it on a massive scale, if possible, to try to be able to connect with the ideas that correspond to hacking this process, as aging is like a foundational underlining item that relates to other issues that sort of, go on top of it in terms of like health, in terms of the health focus, for lack of better words. And so we're just trying to layer that into our campaigning into the future, like Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios, whatever the brand turns into, wherever we try to go, we're trying to take this message and keep it with us so that it's founded and sort of ingrained and sort of embedded in the words and the messages and the causes which we try to speak about and try to push and fundamentally express and expand on for anybody to hear about at any given time, all across as much of the distribution as we possibly can develop, in essence, in the past, present, and future, so that this foundational campaign of reverse aging and longevity of time is a primary focus, to be able to try to spread any kind of good words about this as far and wide as conceptually possible, so that we've got these elements of angles of focus to try to just really hone in on, in terms of conceptualizing ourselves as computers and being able to use this as like conceivably a software interface, because it's just been isolated and synthesized down. The research has, to the extent though it has been up until today, to hopefully where this can transition and help to transition our futures into something more functional and usable somehow. So let's hope to push that into the future, this campaign, this concept of telling all the other people that you know about these two names, David Sinclair, who is the Harvard professor who's pushing this information on the internet far and wide, and also David Friedman, Friedberg, Friedberg, to also do research, because he's backing the same research and potential. And so it's just a matter of searching the internet for these folks that are speaking about reverse aging to share the insight, to share this insight with all of as many elderly people as possibly possible, to try to continue to campaign and push the awareness, to push the gravity, to push the essence of the companies, to push the focus of expanding on this market in of itself, because there's also an economic reward for people being able to stay around in a longer timeline, and that corresponds to business, and that corresponds to government's best interest. And that's why we're trying to push this as a significant back-end foundation in terms of our ingrained focuses and messages, to try to continue to perpetuate, or to recycle going in, from now, I guess, or going forward in essence. So that's about it, but we'll just add a couple more little fluffy things at the end. One thing about myself is I'm kind of like nocturnal a little bit, so one of the concepts to try to like combat that, which is something to also, conceptualize for other people that like sort of the night, maybe not, but is to combine travel with the essence of selling. Trying to combine travel with the essence of selling. For myself, I've tried to sort of not be in the country that I have been in a recent time, and being able to travel and also get a sales job, in essence, to continue to try to sell and help to try to sell and grow our company, Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios, or the brand name, or whatever it is, to be able to try to reinvest and develop dollars to be able to put behind it, is trying to go and get a sales job while in another country, so that in essence it's possible to do selling in the morning, like for the main country, while being in a different country, to be able to basically reverse the hours and have the hours be opposite, to do the selling at night. The selling at night, to be able to try to optimize my hours and try to continue to make targets of trying to push, as much sales value as I possibly can, to be able to reinvest during the day, in the daytime hours, to be able to work in the daytime hours on the primary business and try to reinvest and re-strategize for the core business of Dinky Tech Change for Games, and try to network with some other people in an ideal sense during the daytime hours, and focus on things that are of the highest value, and then work and try to be selling at night, so we can try to repurpose and set goals of, like, just for example, throwing it out there, like 25k sales a day in an ideal sense, to be like at night, like in full sales mode, trying to be in selling mode, to try to hit a 25k a day like threshold of sales, in an ideal sense, to be able to repurpose and reiterate and redistribute across the business for conceptual future growth. But that hopefully is the foundation for future growth for our brand, because it's not necessarily aligned at the current time, and we're trying to sort of get there and push if possible at a better place in time, if you will. So it's just kind of a generalized suggestion, if you're a night person, to conceptualize combining travel with the essence of selling on the phone, for example, to be able to connect with more of your working hours, and also combining travel to suit better your needs, to foundationally nurture the process of selling in an ideal sense, to grow on the short and long end of the tail, focused business that revolves around something that more corresponds to a focus or a passion, or a more core principle or property that speaks to your personal brand, or the essence of a business that is a side interest or a side hustle or side potential that you would like to grow, you would like to overtake your primary occupation, if you will. And that's almost all. One other thing that we're conceptualizing, trying to do in this other land, in this place of relocation, corresponds to using costumes to try to connect with, like, busking and making music, like sound in public, basically in public, but actually covering my identity when trying to make sound in public, doing similar weird sounds like you hear here in this podcast, very much just in the background, but like doing it in public, trying to busk for the first time in places that are very busy, like in HK maybe, or whatever, and just places where it's possible to like have some awareness, but at the same time be like just a little bit what's it called, anonymous. And that's sort of the hope, is to wear like masks, wear identity covering sort of costumes, if you will, to try to like be able to just focus on being an expression, being an energy, being some kind of an energy to flow with whatever other energy is out there, as opposed to being a person, as opposed to being a face that is focused on, that looks like a normal person. It's just like more so trying to dress up as some kind of energy, so that hopefully that energy contributes to sending out some kind of music, in essence, and dressing like some weird energy to be able to just correspond to some like whatever flow of whatever is happening in whatever kind of, you know, people that happen to be present, or that are walking nearby, in terms of the energy that is presented based on that, you know, random energy type, if you will. And that's about it for now. We're gonna close out by saying, as we have been saying, let's every single day for us to push as humanity. Let's push for world peace. Let's push for world peace. Let's push for world peace every single day, to push for world peace. Yes. Let's push for world peace, and let's also remember to try to clear the animal shelters. Let's clear all the animal shelters in the world, because we can foster all the shelter animals, and we can adopt all the shelter animals, and we can also hopefully start to hire the shelter animals as healers, so we can clear the animal shelters, like hire the shelter animals as healers, so that they have jobs and they work for free, and they can work throughout our communities as healers to be able to contribute to humanity, and humans that can use them as therapeutic creatures to try to improve their own feelings and vibrations, to increase the harmony and the connection, if you will, among humanity, by clearing the animal shelters, to be able to foster and adopt all the shelter animals, as well as rescue all the shelter animals, as well as hiring all the shelter animals in the world as healers, to be able to enhance and benefit and hopefully help optimize humanity, to try to clear the animal shelters, to be able to help humanity to harmonize better among and with one another, to hire the shelter animals throughout our communities for that reason, so that we can clear the animal shelters and push as well, push for world peace every single day. Push for world peace every single day. And that's about all for now. Thanks again, Dinky Tech, Change for Game Studios, and Change for Game Studios. Bye, peace, bye.